Hello and welcome to the second video for Culture and Identity A-Level Sociology Catch-Up for Tutor to You. The area of focus for this video is socialization. And remember, this is another synoptic term. In other words, it will come up throughout your first year studies and onto your second year studies as well. So socialization is the process through which individuals learn the norms and values of a particular society. We can then further subdivide socialization into two different types. Primary socialization takes place in the early years of someone's life, and this is when a child learns the values, beliefs, and attitudes of their culture through their parents, guardians, and family. It's really important that you understand what primary socialization is, particularly if you took the families and households topic. Secondary socialization takes place when a child learns the values, beliefs, and attitudes of their culture through those outside of the family, such as their teachers, their friends, and the media. It's important to understand secondary socialization for all the other topics such as education, crime, and then if you're also going to study beliefs or media, whichever topic you're taking. It's also important to remember that secondary socialization never really ends because we continue to learn about ideas and behaviors throughout all of our lives until we die. So what do we mean by agents or agencies of socialization? Well, these are the people, groups, or institutions that shape our understanding of norms and behavior. We've already seen some examples of this. So your family is an agent of socialization. Your teachers are, the media is. We could even go as far as saying the government or law or police or religion is also forms of agents of socialization. So in terms of understanding socialization better, we're going to apply some theory, and we're going to look at 5 different perspectives. The Functionalist View on socialization, the Marxist View, the Feminist View, the Interactionist View, and the Postmodern View. The last 2 theories will be explored in more detail in future videos. So the Interactionist View will be explored more in video 3, and the Postmodern View will be explored more in video 5. Let's start with the Functionalist View. It's important when you're talking about functionalism to quote some sociologists. This will get you more knowledge marks on your essays. So Emil Durkheim or George Murdoch are examples of classic functionalists. The main idea that you need to understand with functionalism in regard to socialization is that they take a consensus view. This means they tend to look at the positives rather than the negatives. And what they do is try and understand how socialization brings people together through value consensus. They say that socialization causes people to work together through value consensus. This means that they work in unity or solidarity with each other in order to keep society going. Functionalists also make the distinction between 2 other types of values, particularistic values and universal values. Particularistic are the values that are applicable just to some individuals, whereas universal values apply to all. So the key thing to remember for functionalism is they see socialization as a positive experience. This contrasts with Marxism. Key theorists you could use for Marxism are Louis Althusser and Pierre Bourdieu. Marxists take the opposite view because they see socialization as causing conflict. And the main reason for this, according to Marxists, is that we're socialized into understanding and believing and following capitalism. In other words, that means that we are taught to be greedy or competitive or value money above everything else. Althusser talks about the ideological state apparatus. This is the idea that the agents of socialization keep you within your social class. For example, we have private schools and we have state schools. According to Althusser, the bourgeoisie are more likely to go to private schools and the proletariat are more likely to go to the state schools. This keeps people within their social class. According to Althusser, we're socialized to stay within our social classes and not have any forms of social mobility. Pierre Bourdieu takes this further by talking about material, cultural, and social capital. In particular, Bourdieu focuses on the cultural capital, as he says this is the forms of behavior that we display as individuals that often relate to our social class. Our social capital is also who we know. So according to Bourdieu, your cultural capital, that's your behaviors, your social capital, who you know, and your material capital, that's how much wealth you have, can aid you in terms of how far you get on in the world. So in other words, if you have high material, cultural, and social capital, you are more likely to be able to go towards the top. And if you're at the lower end of those capitals, you are restricted in terms of how you can progress through your socialization. The feminist approach is also a conflict theory. They tend to look at how the socialization process is negative. And people like Anne Oakley and Fran Ansley are examples of feminists that you could apply to your essays. Whereas Marxists talked about socialization through capitalism, feminism talks about socialization through patriarchy. In other words, what they believe is that everyone is taught about the imbalance of power and that men have more power than women in society through a patriarchal system. It's suggested that this happens through what's called sex role theory or gender socialization. This is the way in which we teach our sons and daughters differently. Even the names that we give them or the colors that we apply. Look at the image on the left. We have this association of blue for boys and pink for girls. According to feminists, we teach children from a very young age specifically what it means to be male and what it means to be female. This is further backed up by the term of canalization. This is the way in which we channel our children in certain directions. Take the example of toys. If you were walk into a toy shop, you'd see quite a clear distinction between what are boys' toys, often in darker colors and guns and action figures and Lego and so on, compared to girls' toys, which are often pink or often quite maternal in terms of dolls and so on. So according to feminists, socialization reinforces the idea of patriarchy from a very young age. The interactionist approach is slightly different to the others because they are a micro approach. They tend to look at the individual factors rather than societal factors in terms of our socialization. A couple of key writers are George Herbert Mead and Erving Goffman. Mead talks about the mind and self. Mead is interested in how children, through their socialization, learn to copy and mimic. He says that you'll notice that young children will play games. They will play games pretending to be adults. And what they are doing here is preparing and learning what it means to be adult in the adult world. Mead also refers to the I and me. This is how people perform through socialization for others. You'll learn more about the I and the me in video 3. Goffman also talks about the presentation of self. Again, we will learn more about this in video 3, but this is the idea that we learn how to perform in front of others, that we are kind of like actors on a stage. And socialization helps us to understand what's appropriate behavior at any given time. The postmodern theory is one, again, which will be explored more in video 5. But to understand postmodernism, you should look at writers such as Zygmunt Bauman and Jean-François Lyotard. Postmodernism tends to look at the ideas to do with globalization and multiculturalism. That's the idea now that we are socialized into a much more global world. We have an understanding of other cultures and difference of cultures, whereas once upon a time we were very much socialized just into our own world, our own culture, our own society and our own country. Postmodernists suggest that we now have more freedom and choice than ever before when we are being socialized. If you think about the amount of choice that you can do in terms of what subjects you could take at college or university, we have far more choice and freedom than we ever have had before. So they say that socialization today is characterized by having a freedom that previous generations didn't have. Postmodernists also talk about socialization being different in the world today because it's much more likely to be secular. This is the idea that religion is becoming less important and more prominent in many of our lives. This is key because for many, religion was a key part of socialization. It was often suggested by functionalists, for example, that the key elements of socialization were the family, education, and religion. Many people would now say that as religion dies out or is fading away in many parts of the world or becoming less important for many people, that's been replaced by the media. And that media now holds our role models and dominance in our lives. In fact, something that we're all quite addicted to. So postmodernism looks at how socialization is very different now for people growing up than it was for people in the past. So that is the end of the Culture and Identity video 2, looking at socialization. What you should now do is have a go at the multiple choice quiz, which will ask you some questions about videos 1 and 2. Thank you for watching.